Hello, and welcome to Evolving on Purpose, a show I have created in hopes that I can inspire you to take the deep dive into discovering who you are and what you came here to do. Each week, I will have on individuals to share their unique journey to self-discovery and where their purpose is taking them. I will also do solo episodes to share what I am currently learning, practicing, or even just contemplating. So come on, what are you waiting for? Join me in Evolving on Purpose. Hello. Today I have Cari Kenzie with me. I've seen her in her kind of evolution over the years, and so I can't wait to really dive in with you, Cari.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about just kind of a snapshot about what you do, and then let's kind of rewind and talk about how you got there.
Oh gosh, yeah. So I'm a quantum healer and a life mastery coach, also a keynote speaker and author. But what that truly means is that I help individuals to be able to navigate beyond drama, trauma, really self-sabotaging behavior, right? In order to be able to find clarity, to unlock possibilities, and to be able to find the trueness of who they are. Get unstuck from where they currently find themselves, right? How I got to this point actually has been quite the, like you say, evolution and story over the past few years. So my background is in marketing. I owned a trade show and event marketing firm here locally for a number of years. Grew up from being very small up to a multi-million-dollar company. And in the midst of all of that, found myself running the Boston Marathon. I had trained and picked up running because I thought as a type A person, this would really help me to de-stress. Just add something else to the bucket. I always find comical. And so during that, I actually ended up qualifying for Boston and found myself at the Boston Marathon in 2013. Now, for those who don't know or aren't familiar, 2013 is the year of the terrorist attack at the finish line in Boston. I had finished the marathon and found myself in the medical tent at the time that the bombs detonated. I had, just an incredible experience, as you can only imagine, as individuals were brought into the medical tent, as the awareness of what had happened truly started to sink in, because intuitively you just knew as soon as the second bomb was set off. And so I left the tent, and as I walked outside, I heard these voices start screaming at me to run as fast as I can. And so I turned and I ran. I don't know how long, I don't know how far, and I don't know how fast, but I know eventually I stopped. I later found my family, and we returned back to the hotel. The next morning, we needed to go back down to the site in order to pick up my bag, the goods that had been left behind. And on this journey, we found ourselves at the end of Boylston Street. And while we were standing there, a reporter came up behind me because I was wearing my finisher's jacket and had wanted to ask me questions. Can I ask you where you were? Can you tell me what your experience was? Can you share with us anything about what happened yesterday? And I never looked at him. I never turned around because there was a voice inside of my head that said, it's not your story to tell. Literally as vocal as it sounded coming from another individual, this is the thought that occurred. And I did. I turned and I walked away. And I flew back home the next day. I landed in back home as a spectator as opposed to a participant, and I went back to work the next day. There's many, many reasons why we do this. We typically will negate the experiences that we have out of a tribute to those who were directly impacted, right? Out of a honor of those who were physically injured. And we dismiss and we devalue ourselves in the experience of that. Well, that led me on a next few months of becoming debilitated in the way of illness. So I went from running marathons to not being able to walk up a flight of stairs unassisted. A couple of years go by, and I have racked up diagnoses from chronic Lyme disease to Hashimoto's and Epstein-Barr, multiple autoimmune conditions. And I had insomnia so bad that it would take 5 prescription sleep medications to go to sleep. Well, as I journeyed through all of this, I had reached out to medical doctors, went through Western medical model, every emergency room, every specialist. I went to the specialty clinics. I was all over the country trying to find answers. And nobody really could give me anything solid. The only thing I was told over and over again is that I may be depressed. And that was frustrating for me. The wake-up moment in all of this was in 2014. I sat in a specialist's office And he, taking my vitals and checking my charts, as every other doctor did, looks at me at one point and he says, "Man, your heart rate is really low. Are you a runner?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "Well, there's absolutely nothing that I can do in order to be able to help you. But here's what I can tell you. And it's that you're not depressed, because I've never known a runner to be depressed." Now, the lightning bolt that happened in that moment, while it did not wake me up and shift everything overnight, it did show me the fact that somebody else had seen me. He had seen me beyond my charts. He had seen me beyond the activities, beyond the symptoms. And in that moment, I realized I had to do it for myself. And that became the very first step in my own healing journey. So 2016, I find myself at a conference. I really start to begin and understand that the mind has an incredible effect on the body, that the experiences that we have been through, the traumas that we have navigated, create limitations and opportunities for resistance, which is honestly just the behaviors in which we feel stuck, right? Those elements, and we're like, man, I'm trying to get to that next level and I just can't get there. And so once I uncovered that, then I really started to take a deep dive, because I started to see shifts happen in my physical body that I did not think I would ever be able to overcome simply by turning around and addressing the experiences that I had been through. And it didn't start in Boston. Of course it didn't. This was a lifelong journey that I had been on. I've lived a life, right? And so I had to go back and I had to look at all of those things. So I studied epigenetics, neurosciences. I studied NLP, psychologies, theta healing, a number of different avenues in order to be able to cultivate the healing that needed to occur within me in order to be able to overcome everything and in order to be the fullest version of who I am.
Yeah. I love that. I have been through that. It wasn't triggered by such a incredible event such as the Boston Marathon, but it was just little tiny things of not listening to myself, not listening, undervaluing, giving, over giving. I had my children. I was in the military. I was working shift work and just constant stress. Am I feeding them correctly? Am I doing things correct? I was making them their chicken nuggets from scratch, like literally blending chicken, because I was so scared that they were going to have, I'd studied all these health things and I didn't want them to be sick. And I knew that I was sensitive. I grew up I always held everything in, right? I always had a stomach ache. I always had a headache. I took Tylenol every day of my life growing up. And so finally I broke, and I went to a natural clinic and got diagnosed with some sort of autoimmune. They didn't tell me what. They said I had autoimmune markers. It could be Hashimoto's. I was anxious all the time. I couldn't sleep. Maybe it was a night of the soul. I don't know. I just knew that I was I couldn't leave my house. I was panic attacked all the time. And luckily something inside me said doctors don't have the answer. And so I did everything to figure it out for myself, finding the tools, finding meditation, finding all of this work. I have a family member that had kind of a similar situation. She has a lot of trauma and she went doctor route, and they've taken her organs, they've taken, and it's not getting better. And I just keep trying to, stress, though you have to do the work, you have to look at the trauma, you have to see what's underlying. And yes, the symptoms are real. It's scary when you're anxious and you're not sleeping and something's wrong and you can't walk up the stairs and everybody says you're fine. That's scary, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That energy that you talk about, the symptoms that we have, is simply the emotion that's trapped. And that's one thing that I had to learn and understand, right? So the experiences that we have externally, everything is energy. And so those experiences that we have, good, bad, neutral, are creating emotions. And those emotions are simply just energy. And that energy has to flow. It has to go somewhere. And when we decide to stuff things down, or we don't have the ability to be able to see, or we quite honestly just get up and brush it off because that's what we're told to do as kids, then that energy manifests itself in the form of illnesses. It manifests itself in the form of pain, of headaches, of stomach aches, of autoimmune conditions, which is why women are so plagued with that issue, because it is an internal battle that we are consistently fighting and not realizing that that internal battle is between the who we are portraying ourselves to be in the world and the who we truly are.
Yeah. That is so true. And I've heard you talk, I love your Instagram. Anybody that wants to, learn more, go find your Instagram. I'll put it in the show notes. But I've heard you talk about, you just did a talk about the lungs, right? And in human design, I have the 25, which feels like expansive love, or it constricts. And my breath constricts and I have a panic attack or so, like constriction. And so where did you learn about the pain in the body? I know I read Louise Hay's book and work that talks about all of the pain in the body, but is there something that you studied to learn about where these different emotions are stored in the body?
Gosh, there's so many different avenues that you can take in order to understand what those emotions are. They all really kind of lead back to the same feel, so to speak. So the lungs are going to carry a lot of grief. They're going to carry a lot of sorrow, which is why there's this element of feeling restricted or stifled, right? You think about even when you cry, when you get into those deep, sorrowful moments and you just can't catch the breath, right? And that's what's happening. So Louise Hay's is a great resource. Metaphysical Anatomy is another fantastic resource. Through Chinese medicine, you can learn quite a lot. Through quantum physics and mechanics, there's a lot to learn there. But as I say, it all kind of feeds back and you'll find the same vein that runs through all of it. And it's fascinating if you really, if you take that Metaphysical Anatomy book and you stub a toe or, something's going on in your wrist and you kind of open it up and you look and she'll give different examples in there. And all of a sudden you'll be like, yeah, yep, that makes sense, right? I can see that's exactly what I'm going through in this moment. But what we tend to do as humans, based on our upbringing and the culture that we live in, is we tend to look at things as separate.
Yeah.
The body is separate from the feelings. The experiences that we have nothing to do with, like, the conversation I'm having with you has absolutely nothing to do with the stomachache that I have. Those are two totally different things when actually they are completely interrelated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. And I wish that people would not dismiss quantum physics, because from a basis level, you look at energy at the smallest, it's all energy, right? Like everything is energy. And so it does make sense when we look at it from that lens. So it does make sense that we have this field around us and the thoughts and the feelings and the things all show up in this physical reality. That's all physical reality is, right?
Well, it's interesting. I actually just had this conversation with a client earlier today. I said, if you take the atom and so much research that they've done around the atom, but if you take that and you look at it, it is primarily energy. This is what they've discovered, right? So if that atom, let's just say it was the size of the Earth, then the proton and neutrons that are sitting within that are like a pin drop, and the rest of it's just energy. Right. So then if that's energy and the words that we speak are energy, because it's just a vibration that's happening, it's coming out of my mouth and it's penetrating the air, and that's just energy. Right. Yeah. And the experience that I'm having, the emotions are energy, then everything is interconnected because I am primarily just energy.
Yeah. And that's what I really had to learn, because I was trying to change the physical reality with physical things, right? Like diet, supplements. And I use diet and I use supplements. They're tools, right?
Yeah.
But you can't eat your way out of it. You can't supplement your way out of it. You can't drug your way out of it. It's, you really have to get down to that core level of what is the energy? What are you hiding? Where's the shadow stored in you? You have to kind of look at all of that, and then things do change. And is it perfect? No. I just went on a trip with my family and it was a lot of stress. It was fun. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. But having 2 children on a plane and all the things, it's stressful. And I have to go back and check my breath and check my breathing and see what are the thoughts that I'm thinking and where I'm at, and refocus. And we just have to learn these tools for life. Otherwise, it's going to catch up to us, right? No matter what.
Yeah, I think that awareness is truly life mastery. right? So when I talk about it, I never say that we're the master of life, because you never master life, right? The only thing that we get to master is any particular moment. And the only way that you get to master that moment is by having an awareness over that moment, that being awareness above that moment and not being caught in it, right? So having an observance to what is the emotion that I'm feeling right now, and then allowing that emotion to guide you on a trail that takes you back to the origination of that emotion, right? Because the origination of that emotion is going to show you where the limitation is happening. And once you find that limitation, then you can pull the thread, and then reality does get to shift and change, right? But it's not until that we have that awareness and we take that time in that moment to get curious that we're actually in mastery.
Yeah. And the movement for a lot of people in spirituality is mantras and positivity and just thinking, you know.
Sorry.
And I love Abraham Hicks. I do. I will listen to Abraham Hicks. It will lift me up. I will kind of weed out things and throw a positive in there. But there are times that you really are being led to see something inside of you and change it, to uncover it, right?
I think every time you're being led inside, every single time. Don't get me wrong. I do love the mantras, and I will allow them to play in my car because I do think that they're fun, right? To help to bring the energy up. However, they're simply a Band-Aid. That's it, right? So it's like going to a doctor and getting an aspirin for the headache. You got an aspirin for the headache, so you relieve the headache in the moment, but you didn't relieve the cause of the headache, right? So now we have to get curious to go back in, as I say, in order to be able to find the source, the thing that caused that limitation to begin with. Like, what is underneath that headache? What is that trying to communicate to you? There's no coincidence. Right? There's no coincidences, and there's no random thought that occurs. Everything is beckoning your attention in order to heal, because that's why we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we come into this physical reality, and in human design, I have all the vessels of love, and I came in and I literally would like crawl up people and knock them down and like hug them to death because I just loved so hard.
Yes.
And then you get taught out of it, right? Like people say you're weird, or they're, you know, and all of a sudden you get all of these little traumas that tell you that's not okay. That's not right. And through that, it's an evolution, right? If everything were rainbows and butterflies and I just got to come here and love everybody, I wouldn't get the evolution. I wouldn't get the growth. And I just think that it's always a gift. It's always a gift to get to grow. And it doesn't always feel like it in the moment, right?
No, it doesn't. And quite honestly, that's why we avoid it, right? We avoid the growth because we don't want to look at the pain. I've been through it. I don't want to address it again. Well, I say, instead of running from it, which is what I did for a number of years, hence why I even qualified for Boston, instead of continuing to run from it, turn around and run into it. Because if you run into it, you get to the other side of it a hell of a lot faster than you do by running away from it, because the thing's always chasing you.
Yeah. Well, and who is it that talks about the pain body? Is that
Eckhart Tolle?
Yes. He talks about the pain body, and it's like, instead of always you always feel it, right? Mm-hmm. You can go in and feel it harder, but then release it instead of constantly being triggered by it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love triggers. I'm one of those crazy people who I'm like, I triggered you. Okay, good. Let's ask the questions around that. Like, sorry, but I'm not sorry, right? That pain is there and it was ready to be pricked and it needs to be healed. So get curious around it and welcome it and stop judging it. That's the thing that we do. Like, any kind of pain comes up, any kind of memory or thought, we get super judgy and we look at it and we're like, oh God, that's awful. And so we turn and we run away. Instead of that, we get to go, wow, okay, that's really interesting. That's like my mantra. If there is a mantra that I have that I teach people, it's this. Isn't that interesting? Right? Because the second I say, isn't that interesting, it takes the judgment off of it. And it actually allows it to play a little bit and allows it to show it something to me. Isn't that interesting? And then I turn around and then I look at it, because now I can see it from a 30,000 foot view. I can see it outside of the emotion. I'm no longer the emotion itself. And Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about that kind of awareness, right? Being aware of be the awareness of the thought. Just don't be the thought.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, I had a friend that really struggled, and you are not your thoughts. Like, no. You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts, you're like a transmitter, a radio, and you are tuned into the wrong thing right now. Like, or you're being triggered by it to learn something, but you are not your thoughts.
Oh my gosh, no. And if you actually think about it, when those thoughts arise, if you ask yourself like two questions, one, whose voice is this? Because it's generally not your voice, right? Whose voice is this? And the second thing you can do is go, how old am I right now? In this moment, how old do I feel? And when you do that, it automatically detaches you from who you are in this moment, from the thought, feeling, or emotion that has arisen in you. And now you have an awareness, and now you get to see it from a different perspective.
Yeah. And I'm a weirdo like you. I mean, I love I love growth. A little pain doesn't scare me. But yeah, it's just really interesting. Again, isn't this interesting? How things will trigger you. I remember when I was trying to get into this space and I wasn't doing the thing, and I would go to the healer, or I'd go and they would trigger the crap out of me. They would trigger me so bad, every single one. The certification I did for human design, everything, trigger, because I'm seeing them as not enough because I'm not enough, right? Like,
yes,
it was just constantly like, oh, they don't know enough. Well, they're saying they're an expert, and it was because I wasn't showing up, and it was just triggering. And as soon as I started showing up and I started putting myself out there, it went away. It's like, I'm done with that lesson, right?
Yep, got it. Check.
On to the next. Yeah. So I would love to hear, because I looked into the theta, especially when I was having like anxiety and all of that. Tell me about what theta healing is.
So it's a modality that allows you to be able to tap into the subconscious mind to see what was recorded. And once we find what was recorded, then we get to erase the tape and we get to place something new in. That is the simplest description that I can say, right? And so it is a very intentional meditation practice that allows you to be able to see the limitations, to go back into old experiences, and to be able to rewrite the subconscious mind in a nutshell.
Yeah. And do you use it? Because I'm certified in hypnosis and do a lot of like hypnosis for myself. Mm-hmm. Do you use it as an everyday practice? Is it just specifically in one-on-one with clients, or how does that work?
No, so that is a tool that I have cultivated and utilize in some aspects in combination with the NLP hypnosis and also the quantum healing, the pro-consciousness medicine, in order to be able to find those patterns that people have created, so we can pull the thread, release the trauma, and be able to move forward. So it's just kind of like, you have the toolkit, and it's just another one of those things that I've been able to pull pieces away from in order to be able to learn and understand, be able to see the subconscious mind in a different way, and to be able to shift that programming.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I always think it's interesting when people think about hypnosis, they think, oh, it's this crazy out of body experience. Oh. And really, we're kind of being hypnotized all the time. We just need to do it intentionally, right?
It's a brainwave. That's all it is. Hypnosis is simply a brainwave, people. You go in and out of it all day long. You go into it when you're going to sleep at night. You're in it when you wake up in the morning. It is simply a brainwave. All we're doing is you have to slow down the brain just enough in order to create gaps in thoughts. And when you create gaps in thoughts, that's when you can tap into the subconscious mind. It's also when the intuition and creativity completely open up to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's that, so when you think of hypnosis, think about it like this. You're talking to a friend and you're like, man, you remember that cute guy from the movie? Dang it, what was his name? Like, oh, he was so cute, right? And you keep going over and over it and you can't think of it. But the second you walk away, you drop it, right? You drop it, you create a gap in the thoughts. And the second you create that gap in the thoughts, the brainwave has slowed just enough down that it drops in and you know, oh, there it is. I know exactly who that was, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing, but all we have done is we've taken hypnosis and we've placed it in this category of being at like the comedy halls or, in the back rooms where somebody's hypnotizing you to be a chicken. This is not what happens. It's a completely different thing.
Yes. And you have to be willing, when you sign up for that, you're like, yeah, I'm okay with making a fool of myself. And there is some mastery to it, but you're ready for that. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I love all the tools in the toolbox so much. And you do, and now you've certified even further to be a quantum healer. What does that look like?
Yeah. So really, what quantum healing is and understands, because I'm working my master's and PhD within the realm of that, is consciousness is the basis of all being. Okay. So consciousness, if there's a way to heal, the only way to heal fully and completely is through consciousness. Because again, as we talked about before, everything's energy. Absolutely everything is energy. It's just moving at a different vibration. So the microphone that is sitting in front of you is moving, but it's moving so slow that it looks like it's solid because it's energy. Everything is just molecules. It's atoms and molecules, and it's all working together. That's the understanding and basis of quantum physics. And within that, the quantum healing then looks at the consciousness. We look at the individual as a whole, not just as the symptom. And we're really working to find the source so that we can bring true wholeness and healing within the realm of that entirety of that individual.
I love it. I love the holistic look. And that's what I'm always searching for. It's like there is no one path. There is no perfect way. There is no, but when we expand and we open up to all that is and bring these things in, then we can get to the juice of it. We can figure it out. And I love that you're bringing that to Des Moines and you're bringing that to the world. And all the things. Tell me about the Quantum Collective. So now you're bringing together a group of people, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. The Quantum Collective is such a fun, it's such a fun little thing that we've put together. So it is a community of individuals coming together every other Wednesday night to workshop and to communicate, to really bring together a different view and perspective of the wholeness of the individual and what it looks like to be able to truly heal through many, many different facets. And we look at, so as we've begun, we're really looking at quantum healing. We're really looking at the mind. We're really looking at where these limitations come from and what is energy and how does energy tour, right? And so we're really trying to unpack and come to a fullness of understanding of what these different elements and playful things are in the realm of a workshop, and then to find like-minded people, which sometimes can be difficult, right? But to find like-minded people who are on the same kind of journey and they're wanting to evolve and they're wanting to grow, to be able to have these conversations with is amazing. Yeah. So we're doing this every other Wednesday night. It is a membership-based community. And again, just covering a gamut of different topics.
And do you have to be local or can you be anywhere in the world?
No. So we meet virtually and we meet in person, which makes it a really cool collective, right? Because we have individuals from all across the country. And then we have the group that gathers here and we're able to workshop and we're able to break out and to have conversations with all sorts of different kinds of people, right? To get lots of different perspectives and opportunities to see truths from different angles, to have a compassion and understanding and to be able to embrace all of it.
It's so wonderful to bring this into an interaction because I always, I was in a place where I wasn't where I wanted to be and I wasn't sure how to get to the next step. And they talk about you are the people that you surround yourself with. And I looked around and I was like, if I told these people what I wanted to do, they'd think I grew two heads. Like they'd be like, who does she think she is? And so I surrounded myself with podcasts, I just probably 8 hours a day, sometimes all day long, while I'm working, while I'm walking, just surrounded myself with people that were doing the things that were building what I wanted and using, I was learning things, but I was also bringing in that vibration. And so that's kind of, I was like, okay, now I'm here. I'm doing the work. I feel good. Now, how do I bring in my community? And so now I've started the podcast and I'm really excited to start coming to the Quantum Collective here too. I can't wait to work more with you and David and all of that. And I really wanted to talk too about the ripple of change.
Yeah, ripples of change. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we've been so busy. It's crazy.
I know. Look at all this stuff.
Like, wow, we did that. And we did that too, right? So in addition to creating the Quantum Collective, we founded a nonprofit. And I have such a huge, this is like a passion for me. This is a mission. So Ripples of Change Foundation came to be based on the understanding in my own experience of navigating the attack in Boston. And when I say that, it's because, as I mentioned before, I walked away a spectator as opposed to a participant. I invalidated my own experience because I was caught in what I call the ripple. I wasn't in the impact zone. Now, those who are directly affected, who are injured, who are visibly damaged, I would say, right? Visibly hurt by such an experience, they are surrounded and supported instantaneously, which is amazing. And they should be. Absolutely, they should be. However, there is an entire community of ripple, an entire community of people who were touched and traumatized by that experience. Yet being caught in the ripple, they then negate themselves from having that experience. And this is not just within the realm of the terrorist attack that happened in Boston. I have seen it with people who've had cancer. I have seen it with people who've gone through divorce. I have seen it with individuals who, you name it, right? There, if we do not feel like we fit within a certain category or certain prescriptor, then we invalidate ourselves and we place ourselves in this like devalued position. And it's terribly unfortunate. So when that happens, and we become the spectator, then we tend to navigate life in a trauma response and not even realizing we're doing it, right? We tend to be competitive. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of competition that happens, right? All of these things. And then we continue that trauma as a ripple out into the community. And then that trauma continues not just through the community, but down through the generations. And so I have a heart to bring forward a message to those who have been caught in the ripple of any experience in their life, to bring forward the opportunity for them to finally be able to tell the story, to bring voice to that experience so that they have the opportunity to heal as well. Because if they take the time, the moment they understand they're worthy of that healing, then we can truly heal communities, and then we can also heal generations. And so the first step that we're taking in that education and advocacy of that message is to create a documentary. And we'll be doing, it's a documentary series. The first one will be done in Boston this year at the 10-year anniversary. And it'll depict my story in order to bring voice to that and to be able to share that forward. And then eventually to be able to support the foundation in such a way that we give the opportunity for those who need the healing to do it, right? In a way that's accessible.
No, that is so powerful. It's so prevalent in our lives, even like you brought up all the ripples of that and just so many other things that we just don't recognize. And even just having autoimmune disease and things like that don't show, and you're supposed to act normal and you're supposed to act like you're okay. And yeah, we just need that so much for everybody. So I'm so happy to get to share your message through the podcast so more people can get on board. But I'm so grateful for you, for all the work that you've done on yourself and the ripples that are coming from that, right? Like if you didn't show up for you, it wouldn't have happened. Sometimes we have to take the time to take care of ourselves and look at what can come.
Well, everybody has to, right? Everybody has to. And I think that's what trueness of self-care is, right? It's not, I love a bath, don't get me wrong. Throw me in a bubble bath, I'm like totally good. However, self-care is not soaking in a bubble bath at the end of the night and quiet. It is, and it's not. Self-care is actually turn around and facing the pain. It's navigating through it. It's getting to the other side of it so that you have the opportunity to be the wholeness for somebody else to be able to see, so that they can see that light and go and navigate and find it for themselves. Like this is the ripple that needs to occur. And there is not a person who is unscathed after this past 2 years. Not one. Yeah. So if we wonder what's happening within our organizations, or we wonder what's happening within our families, and we wonder what's happening in community and why the culture is the way the culture is, that's it. So let's start with that individual healing, that curiosity to be able to dive into self, to honor the experiences. So then that can be the message that carries forward.
Yes, I agree so much. So if somebody is hearing this and they're realizing like, oh my gosh, I might have some trauma. I have these headaches. My arm's always hurting. Like what is the first thing that they could do?
Gosh, the first thing, and this is actually the first thing that I learned too, and I didn't even realize it until much later. The first thing that you can do is just really become present with it. because in that presence, then you have the opportunity to have the awareness and get curious. But that presence is the most difficult thing to do. And that presence, quite honestly, is just a matter of taking a few breaths. That's it. That's it. Just closing the eyes, placing your hand on your heart, focusing your breath into the heart, shutting down the mind, and bringing that awareness internally, and just getting really present in the moment. There's so many different benefits that can come off of that, quite honestly, right? The nervous system regulation and, lowering the heart rate and taking you out of fight or flight. All of that is absolutely amazing. But if you can get really, really present with what you're feeling in that moment, if you can look at the emotion over the experience and get curious about it, that's where truly healing is going to happen.
I was just learning, I've been learning about some body work and fascia and all that. And the instructor was talking about how many more neurons we have in our hands than anywhere else. And so he talked about putting your hand on your heart and breathing in. And that way it brings the energy there, because the touch, the hands, and so that's something I've been practicing, because I have some thyroid stuff that flares up, especially when I'm traveling and all of that. And I just put my hand and I breathe, and it just brings that energy there. This is where I'm focusing. Here's my hand over my heart. I'm loving, right?
And that's just it too, because you will place your focus, your attention where you feel the pressure, right? Yeah. And so if you can take that pressure and place it in the hand and place it over the heart, then all of a sudden you're placing your awareness within the heart. That's the best place to be.
It is. It is. Yeah. I love that so much. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Cari, for coming on the podcast. Can you leave us with what is the best way to contact you? And you do one-on-one coaching, correct? Is that online or is that in person?
So I do both virtual and in person, because I work globally. You can find me on Instagram. And then also, just as an extra perk, we are offering 1 month free to the Quantum Collective to your audience.
Oh, wow. I will put that in the note.
Yes, definitely do that. I'll have the link over specific for you to be sent out. And that is just an amazing way to get connected. It's an amazing introduction into the realm and the world of which I live. So you can start to see that. And then connecting beyond that, like I say, through Instagram, or you can always go to my website and look at the coaching information there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing so openly with everything that you've been through and everything that you're doing. I am just so blessed to have you in this community and getting to know you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It was amazing to see you as well. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And I just want to encourage you this week to take a step back and kind of think about what Cari and I were talking about in this episode about everything having a lesson and how it can show itself in pain, maybe a stubbed toe or a headache or some tightness in the chest, a little bit of grief maybe that you don't even know is there. But our body is always trying to tell us something. Our emotions are always trying to tell us something. That person at the supermarket that said something to you in line and you felt a certain way, right? All of these things are always trying to tell us something. So when we step back and we ask, what is the lesson? My best friend has always reminded me, what's the lesson? What's the lesson? Because everything is a lesson. If I get triggered and feel this emotion or have this reaction, it is here to be a lesson. And that's what I really think about. Why are we here? That's always the big question. Why are we here? I feel like the earth is just a school. It's a school for us to really learn these different lessons. And we have everything that we need here to ensure that we have these experiences that we can grow from, that we can evolve from. So take some time this week, see if anything comes up, see if you can find out what is the lesson here and kind of contemplate that. Also, I do have all of that information for Cari in the show notes. I would love it if you checked out all of her information, what she's doing, see what there is for you in it. And we also have that 1 month free for the Quantum Collective. So if that's something that you were intrigued by, go check it out. You get 1 month free. And as always, thank you for being here, and let's keep evolving on purpose.